We, couple wa. I hope you all are doing good. How is your service year going? My prayer for you is that by the end of your service year, you all will be better persons. Go back more refined, go back better equipped for the world. My name is Kemi Parker, and I am your facilitator for this part of the lecture series on project management and technique. As you're aware, having a clear management structure in place is vital for any organizational success. Efficient and well-intentioned management set the tone for the rest of the staff, and this leads to success. Now, according to Fayo is one of the management gurus in time of our time. According to Fayo, there are 14 management principles that are very, very key to the success of any organization. They are division of labor, authority, discipline, unity of command. Unity of commands means that there should be a clear line or chain of command. An employee must know exactly whose instructions to follow. Again, we have unity of direction. Remuneration. In order to motivate and be fair to employee, they should be well paid. A good payment has a way of motivating staff to impute more, to give more to the organization. The principle of management is degree of centralization, scalar chain, material and social order, equity, stability of tenure in initiative, then esprit de corps, which in modern translation means you should know how to boost your own self-morale. In this series of our lecture, we shall be looking at 4 key modules, namely concepts in management, management theories, management models, and management behaviors and attitudes towards people. We begin this lecture with this important question. What is management? What do you think is management? Can you define management in your own words? Now, many management thinkers have defined management in their own ways. For example, Van Fleet and Peterson define management as a set of activities directed at the efficient and effective utilization of resources in the pursuit of one or more goals. Megison, Mosley, and Pietri define management as working with human, financial, and physical resources to achieve organizational objectives by performing the act of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling functions. Kettral's definition of management goes thus. Management is a problem-solving process of effectively achieving organizational objectives through the efficient use of scarce resources in a changing environment. Now, according to F.W. Taylor, who is one of the management guru of our time, he defined management as an art of knowing what to do, when to do it, and see that it is done in the best and cheapest way. Another school of thought is Harold Kuhn's, who is also a management guru. According to Harold Kuhn's, management is an art of getting things done through and with people in formally organized groups. It is an act of creating an environment in which people can perform and individuals can cooperate towards attainment of group goals. Now, a leader has certain inherent qualities and traits which assist him in playing a directing role and wielding commanding influence with others. Leadership is an integral part of management and plays a role in managerial operations. While management is an integral component of technical as well as social processes, the practice of management is as old as human civilization. Now we look at the concept of management. The term management is used in three alternative ways. It could be used or seen as a discipline. It could also be referred to as a group of people or as a process. Who is a manager? I'm sure you all have your own definition of who a manager is. But for the purpose of this lecture, we will be looking at manager from a professional perspective. Now, a manager is a person who is responsible for a part of a business or a company. That is, they manage the company or the business. Managers may be in charge of a department and the people who work in it. In some cases, the management is in charge, or rather, the manager is in charge of the whole business. For example, a restaurant manager is in charge of the whole restaurant. A manager is a person who exercises managerial functions primarily. They have the power to hire, to fire, and to discipline. They also have the powers to do performance appraisal and monitor attendance. They also have the power to approve overtime and authorize vacation as the need arises. A manager can be termed as the boss. The manager's duty also include managing employee or a section of the company on a day-to-day basis. As we can see on the slide displayed, we have about 5 functions of management: planning, organizing, controlling, leading. Now, managers don't just go out and haphazardly perform their responsibilities. Good managers discover how to master 5 basic functions. These include planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. Planning. These steps involve mapping out exactly how to achieve a particular goal. Say, for example, that the organizational goal is to improve the company's sales. The managers first need to decide which steps are necessary to accomplish that goal. These steps may include increasing advertising, inventory, and sales staff. These necessary steps are developed into a plan. When the plan is in place, the manager can follow it to accomplish the goal of improving company sales. Organizing. After a plan is in place, a manager needs to organize his or her team and materials according to a plan. Assigning work and granting authority are 2 important elements of organizing. Staffing. After a manager designs his areas of needs, he may decide to beef up his staffing, selecting, training, and developing employees. A manager in a large organization often works with a company's human resource department to accomplish this goal. Leading. A manager needs to do more than just plan, organize, and staff his or her team to achieve a goal. He or she must also lead. Leading involves motivating, communicating, guiding, and encouraging your team. It requires the manager to coach, assist, and solve problems with employee. Controlling. After the other elements are in place, a manager's job is not finished. It needs to continuously check results against goals and take any corrective actions necessary to make sure that these areas plan or objectives remain on track. All managers at all levels of every organization perform these functions. The management of any organization perform some major roles. Now, these roles may range from interpersonal roles to informational roles to even decisional roles. Now, under interpersonal roles, they can act as figureheads, they are referred to as leaders or liaisons. Informational roles, they are seen as monitors, disseminators of information, good or bad, and they are also referred to as well spokespersons of company or of management. Again, looking at the decisional roles, they can be seen as entrepreneurs. They take certain decisions that will lead to organizational success. Another role is the disturbance handler. They handle critical problems. They handle any external or internal factor that want to destabilize the company. They are also seen as resource allocators. They manage resources as much as possible to the best interest of the organization. Also, management could be seen as negotiators. When it comes to contracts and getting things done, they are seen as playing the negotiator's role. Now, management comes with its own good sides. And this good side of management is referred to as rewards of management. Of course, if you're referred to as a manager, there is this prestige that comes with it. You feel on top of the world. You feel you have the authority. You feel you can command people. You feel you can wield, influence. So one key rewards of management is the prestige that comes with the name manager. Again, is the more discretionary powers to recruit. As a manager, you may find yourself seated in the panel where recruitment is done. And that way, you have a say when it comes to hiring and firing of employees. Again, as a manager, one enjoys higher patient. There's also this respect from the society. Another reward is self-fulfillment and self-satisfaction. When you start work in a corporate organization, most times we start at the lowest level. It takes real hard work and commitment to rise to that level of a manager. And so when one becomes a manager, it comes with that element of self-fulfillment and self-satisfaction. Lastly, one of the rewards of management is also the joy of controlling others. You are able to control others. You're able to tell people what to do and what not to do. Now, looking at the rewards of management, being a manager is something everybody would like to be. But let me also sound this to us all, that being a manager comes with its own challenges, and these challenges are numerous. We'll look at a few of them in the course of this lecture. Insubordination. At times you have your reports being so unruly and disrespectful. And those are some of the problems managers face in the place of work. We have unmotivated teams. Teams can become unmotivated for various reasons. And when they are not motivated, it has a way of affecting the manager's delivery or attainment of certain organizational objectives. Unavailability of resources. Of course, managers are to, make use of scarce resources in the most efficient ways. But at times, could get to the extreme, where a manager might find it difficult to even sleep because he has to get things done with little or no resources available. Friends and relatives. Of course, you may ask, how can friends and relatives be a challenge to management? Many a time, managers, once somebody becomes a manager, the friends, the relatives see him as someone that has arrived. And so the demand from those people becomes very high. Again, we have the challenge of globalization and competition. The world is a global village. And so, for you to remain number one, for you to continue to deliver excellently, you have to keep moving. You have to keep running. You have to keep learning new things. You have to keep excelling. You have to keep upgrading. You have to keep, studying, reading, going for trainings, so as to keep up with globalization and trends. Again, we have the ethics and social responsibility. Ethics is very key. In the course of these lectures, we're going to also look at behaviors, we're going to look at attitudes. These are very important aspects of being a successful manager. Then again, we have the challenge of poor business environment. If you look at Nigeria, for example, the environment is quite challenging. And for a manager or management to actually deliver, they have to go the extra mile. Again, one of the challenges of management is quality and productivity. We also have strategy formulation. Now, strategy formulation is very key if we must continue to strive in a poor business environment. If a company must also continue to strive in the global world, strategy formulation is key. And so every manager should be well grounded in strategy. Then we have the workplace diversity. As a manager, you need to manage the old, you need to manage the young, you need to manage millennials. And so it takes certain interpersonal skills for you to be able to deliver and to manage those people very well. Truth is, you cannot do it alone. You need the old, you need the new, you need the millennials, you need the old wisdom, you need the new eyes that can see things differently for you to actually deliver as a manager. Now we'll take a look at the skills required of a manager. A good manager is expected to have starting skills which he could use to run the organization. The 5 key managerial skills expected of any successful manager are: 1, technical skills; 2, conceptual skills; 3, interpersonal and communication skills; 4, decision-making skills; and 5, diagnostic and analytical skills. Technical skills. Now, the technical skill is knowledge of and proficiency in activities involving method, processes, and procedures. Thus, it involves working with tools and specific techniques. Technical skill is the ability to use the specified knowledge, procedure, and techniques of a field of activities. Now let's look at conceptual skill. What is conceptual skill? Conceptual skill is the ability to see the big picture, to recognize significant elements in a situation, and to understand the relationship among the elements. Conceptual skill is the ability to coordinate and integrate all of an organization's interests and activities. It requires having the ability to visualize the enterprise as a whole, to envision all the functions involved in a given situation or circumstances, to understand how its parts depends on one another, and anticipate how a change in any of its parts will affect the whole. A manager's ability to think in the abstract and to view the organizations holistically is very important. Suggesting a new project line for a company, introducing computer technology to the organization's operation, or entering the international market. For deciding this magnitude, a manager requires conceptual skill in his personality. Now, interpersonal and communication skills. Communication skill for a manager is a must. A manager must be able to convey ideas and information to others and receive information and ideas from others effectively. A manager's job is to control the subordinates and give high-level managers or administrators information about what is going on. Communication skill will therefore enable a manager to perform his tasks properly. Most of his time, a manager's job is to interact with people inside and outside of the organization. Managers' ability to communicate with individuals and groups, controlling and motivating them, requires interpersonal and communication skill. A manager requires having an effective interpersonal and communication skill to keep the responsibilities given to him. Now we look at decision-making skill. In a simple word, a manager's job is to make decisions that will lead the organization to the attainment of its goals and objectives. Decision-making skill is the skill that makes a manager able to recognize opportunities and threats and then select an appropriate course of action to tackle them effectively so that the organization can benefit from them. Managers are not always going to make the best decisions, but a good manager most often makes a good decision and learns from the bad ones. Decision making is a skill that improves as managers gain more experience. Training or educating is also a good way or a good method to develop the decision-making skill of a manager. Lastly, we look at the diagnostic and analytical skills of a manager. A good manager has diagnostic and analytical skills in his bags. Diagnostic skill refers to the ability to visualize the best response to a situation. Analytical skill means the ability to identify the key variables in a situation. Managers' diagnostic skills and analytical skills help them to identify possible approaches to a situation. Our next module is management theories. Here we'll get to know and to define what a theory is, the different types of management theories that exist, and the relevance and challenges of these management theories. First, we want to know what a theory is. As displayed on the slide, a theory is a set of proven assertions and principles that explain a concept, behavior, observation, or events. Management theories usually explain, evaluate, apply, or describe management concepts. In this lecture series, we'll focus our attention on three key management theories, namely scientific management theory, human relations theory, and the systems theory. As displayed on the slide, we'll be discussing the scientific management theory. What is the scientific management theory? The scientific management theory is a theory of management that analyzes and synthesizes workflows. Its main objective is improving economic efficiency, especially labor productivity. It was one of the earliest attempts to apply science to the engineering of processing to management. Scientific management sometimes is known as Taylorism, after its pioneer, Frederick Winslow Taylor. Although scientific management as a distinct theory or school of thought was obsolete by the 1930s, Most of its themes are still important parts of industrial engineering and management today. These include analysis, synthesis, logic, rationality, empirism, work ethics, efficiency, and elimination of wastes. The major principles of scientific management theory as given by Taylor can be summarized as follows. The first is separating planning from doing. Second is the functional foremanship of supervision. That is, 8 supervisors required to give directions and instructions in their respective fields. Again, the principle looks at time, motion, and fatigue studies to be used to determine the fair amount of work done by each individual worker. It also looks at improving the working condition and standardizing the tools, period of work, and cost of production. Again, the principle takes into cognizance the proper scientific selection and training of workmen. And then lastly, the financial incentives given to those workmen should boost their productivity and motivate them to perform well. Taylor's theory of scientific management was a major breakthrough in traditional approach to management process. Simultaneously, as management evolved gradually, Taylor's theory was severely criticized and its role declined drastically to the extent that nowadays it is argued whether scientific management still exists. It is not hard to find examples of scientific management today. We can see the car industry, manufacturing plants, even some hospitals function efficiently due to the application of scientific management theory. Taylor's time and motion study is still widely used by managers today. This is evident in McDonald's, who use one standardized process, e.g., to make a burger, which workers have to follow. This standardized process and the other principles of scientific management put together has evidently proved to be the best way to reach their ultimate productivity, thus leading fast food chain in the world. Though managers will have their own unique technique of management, however, every manager has to use strategies which are compatible with the organization's nature and culture of work. Now we should discuss the disadvantages of scientific management theory. Application of the theory is at high cost, and so the application of this theory is not suitable for smaller or upcoming firms. 2, just as explained, it is unsuitable for small firms. Small firms cannot apply this theory because of the inherent high costs. Then the theory also demands response from workers. Again, there's this loss of individual initiative because there is a standard way of doing things. So even if a worker has a new initiative, even if there's a new discovery, the worker might not be able to actually implement such. Again, there is autocratic control of functional boss, creation of unemployment, unfairness, monotony. Now, monotony, where you keep doing the same thing over and over again, no improvement, no new thing added to it, one becomes bored. And in that way, could lead to job dissatisfaction. Lastly, the application of management, of the scientific management theory, also leads to absence of non-financial incentives. Next, we'll look at the human relations theory. What is the human relations theory? Human relations theory is a psychology concept of human relation. The theory says that if employees feel important and carry along in decision making, then they work hard and they try to achieve personal and company goals. The human relation theory of organization has three main components. First, the theory places an emphasis on the importance of individuals. A worker is not simply a cog in a machine, but an idiosyncratic individual who responds to his or her environment. Maximizing the productivity of workers require taking these individuals' characteristics into account. Second, human relations theory takes into account the informal organizations in the workplace. What is important to the workers and what influences his or her productivity level may not be the official organizational chart, but his or her own associations with other workers. The objectives of human relations theory include 1. To improve productivity of employees. 2. To remove grievances of employees. 3. To achieve company goals. 4. To improve goodwill of company. 5. To provide fair, acceptable, and efficient leadership. And lastly, to provide an opportunity for expression and voice management. The principles of human relation theory include 1. To provide recognition and appreciation to the employees. 2. To understand the feelings and emotions of the workers. 3. To provide freedom to the employees. And lastly, to communicate with employees. Now we shall take a look at the advantages of human relations theory. The advantages are numerous, but we'll concentrate on a few. The first is that human relation theory improves productivity of employees. It also removes grievance among the employees. It improves employee retention. That way, labor turnover is reduced. Again, the human relation theory creates good human relationship amongst or between bosses and employees. And lastly, the human relation theory improves goodwill of a company. We also have a number of disadvantages when it comes to the application of the human relations theory. First is that the theory does not include productivity of workforce. Second, the theory does not show roadmap of work. The theory is more or less more theoretical in concepts. Again, the human relation theory has difficulty of analysis. And lastly, there is loss of subjectivity. Next, we shall be discussing the systems theory of management. What is the systems theory? The systems theory is an interdisciplinary study of systems. The key concept of systems theory, regardless of which discipline is being applied to, is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. What this means is that when holistically examining how smaller systems come together to affect the greater complex system, certain characteristics of the whole, the complex system, cannot be easily explained or rationalized when looking singularly at any one of its systems, that is, its parts. System theory therefore seeks to explain and develop hypotheses around characteristics that arise within complex systems that seemingly could not arise in any single system within the whole. This is referred to as emergent behavior. If a complex system expresses emergent behavior, that means it has characteristics its properties do not display on their own. A simple system theory example is baking. Consider all the ingredients that make up a cake. If you were to lay them out on your counter and weren't familiar with baked goods, it will be difficult to envision how the egg, flour, sugar, etc. could be combined and heated to create a cake. That's because no singular ingredient or environmental factor, in this case heat, would produce a baked good such as a cake on its own. From the perspective of systems theory, the whole, our dessert in this example, is greater than the sum of its parts. Having understood what the systems theory is all about, we'll now discuss the strengths of a systems theory. We have about 5 displayed on the slide. Number 1, the system theory deals with complexity. It takes a holistic view of the systems. It can easily manage change through interaction with the environment. It utilizes feedback, easy to improve. And lastly, it recognizes the importance of super systems. Just as we discussed in other theories which we have examined earlier, all theories have their own disadvantages. The systems theories has its own advantages as well. And some of these disadvantages are outlined on the slide. First is that the systems theory doesn't focus on specific task functions. The systems theory doesn't provide for detailed focus. Again, the theory changes in environment directly affect the structure and function of the organization. And lastly, the systems theory doesn't directly explore the impact of interpersonal relationship and loyalty productively. The next module we shall be discussing is the management models. What is a management model? A management model is the choices made by a company's top executives regarding how they define objectives, motivate efforts, coordinate activities, and allocate resources. In other words, it's how they define the work of management. There are different types of models, but for the purpose of this lecture, we shall concentrate on 2 key management models, namely the employee participatory models and then the management grid model of management. Stop it. The employee participatory model. The participative model, otherwise known as employee involvement or participative decision making, encourages the involvement of stakeholders at all levels of an organization in the analysis of problems, development of strategies, and implementations of solutions. Employees are invited to share in the decision-making process of the firm by participating in activities such as goal setting, determining work schedule, and making suggestions. Other forms of participative management include increasing the responsibilities of employees, known as job enrichment, forming self-management teams, quality circles, or quality of work-life committee, and soliciting survey feedback. Participative management, however, involves more than allowing employees to take part in making decisions. It also involves management treating the ideas and suggestions of employees with consideration and respect. The most extensive form of participative management is direct employee ownership of a company. Now we shall be discussing the processes that influence employee participation. As rightly displayed on the slide, we have 4 key processes that influence employee participation. First is information sharing. Now, information sharing is concerned with keeping employees informed about the economic status of the company. The second is training. Training involves raising the skill levels of employee and offering development opportunities that allow them to apply new skills to make effective decisions regarding the organization as a whole. Third is employee decision making. This can take many forms, from determining work schedule to deciding on budgets or other processes. And lastly is the reward system, which should be tied to suggestions and ideas as well as performance. The necessary conditions for effective workers' participation include the following: staff training, adequate job knowledge, skills, and positive work ethics, high dose or organizational loyalty, willingness of management to share authority and power, and willingness of the workers to accept and participate in decision making. Other conditions include financial compensation to the workers for their additional responsibilities, a climate of trust between workers and managers. Another condition is a modification in organizational structures and processes, when the acceptance of and commitment to decision by workers are vital. And lastly is the adequate time for workers to make decisions. The next model of management that we shall be discussing is the management grid model. The managerial grid model is a style leadership model developed by Robert R. Blake and Jane Mouton. This model originally identified 5 different leadership styles based on the concern for people and the concern for production. The ultimate leadership style in this model is based on theory Y. The grid theory has continued to evolve and develop. The theory was updated with 2 additional leadership styles and with a new element, resistance. The Blake-Mouton managerial grid is based on 2 behavioral dimensions. As we have explained, it has to do with concern for people. This is related to the fact that a leader must consider his team members, their needs, interests, and areas of personal development when deciding how best to accomplish a task. And the second has to be concern for results, otherwise known as production. This refers to the degree to which a leader emphasizes concrete objectives, organizational efficiency, and high productivity when deciding how best to accomplish a task. Blake and Mouton defined 5 leadership styles based on these, as illustrated in the diagram displayed on the screen. Let's take a look at each quadrant in details. The first is the impoverished management, which is as a result of low results and low people. The impoverished or indifferent manager is mostly ineffective, with a low regard for creating systems that get the job done, and with little interest in creating a satisfying or motivating team environment. Its results are inevitably disorganization, dissatisfaction, and disharmony. The second quadrant, produce or perish management, which is as a result of high results and low people, also known as authoritarian or authority compliance manager. People in this category believe that their team members are simply a means to an end. The team's needs are always secondary to its productivity. This type of manager is autocratic, has strict work rules, policies, and procedures, and can view punishment as an effective way of motivating team members. This approach can drive impressive production results at first, but low team morale and motivation will ultimately affect people's performance, and this type of leader will struggle to retain high performance. The middle of the road management, also known as a result of medium results and medium people. A middle of the road, or as the case may be, the status quo manager tries to balance results and people. But this strategy is not as effective as it may sound. Through continual compromise, it fails to inspire high performance and also fails to meet people's needs fully. The result is that his team will likely deliver only mediocre performance. Again is the country club management, which is bettered as a result of high people but low results. The country club or accommodating style of manager is most concerned about the team members' needs and feelings. He or she assumes that as long as they are happy and secure, they will work hard. What tends to be the result is a work environment that is very relaxed and fun, but where productivity suffers because there is a lack of direction and control. And lastly, we look at the team management, which is as a result of high production and high people. According to Blake Mutin's model, team management is the most effective leadership style. It reflects a leader who is passionate about his work and who does the best he can for the people he works with. Team or sound managers commit to their organization's goal and mission, motivate the people who report to them, and work hard to get people to stretch themselves to deliver great results. But at the same time, they are inspiring figures who look after their teams. Someone led by a team manager feels respected and empowered and is committed to achieving his or her goals. Team managers prioritize both the organization's production needs and their people's need. They do this by making sure that their team members understand organization's purpose and by involving them in determining production needs. When people are committed to and have a stake in the organization's success, their need and production needs coincide. This creates an environment based on trust and respect, which leads to high satisfaction, motivation, and excellent results. As good as the management grid theory is, it also comes with its own bags of problems. Two key problems of the management grid theory are: one, the model is classified and cannot explain why a manager has a particular style. The second problem of the management grid theory is that a manager will always rely on others to evaluate himself with the management grid. Another management model worthy of discussion in this lecture series is management by objectives, also known as MBO. The MBO is a strategic management model that aims to improve organizational performance by clearly defining objectives that are agreed to by both management and employees. According to the theory, having a say in goal setting and action plans encourages participation and commitment among employees, as well as aligning objectives across the organization. The strategy was formulated by Peter Drucker in the 1950s, detailing 5 steps that organizations should follow. Critics of MBO argue that it leads to employees trying to achieve the set goals by any means necessary, often at the cost of the company. As stated by Peter Drunkard, there are 5 necessary steps for MBO to actually manifest. And these are known as the necessary conditions for the application of MBO. First is that managers and subordinates should have love and accept change. The second is that performance should be in critical or key results area. The third is performance evaluation should be objective and target-based. The fourth condition is that managers should be supportive and ready to delegate to subordinates. And lastly, targets and results should be smart in nature. Advantages and disadvantages of management by objectives. MBO comes with many advantages and disadvantages to a company's success. The benefits include employees taking pride in their work with goals that they know they can achieve. It also aligns employees with their strengths, skills, and educational experiences. MBO also leads to increased communication between management and employees. Assigning tailored goals brings a sense of importance to employees, bringing loyalty to the firm. And lastly, management can create goals that lead to the success of the companies. Though there are plenty benefits to MBO, there are some drawbacks and limitations. As MBO is focused on goals and targets, it often ignores other parts of a company, such as the culture of conduct, a healthy work ethos, and areas for involvement and contribution. MBO puts increased strains on employees to meet the goals in a specified time frame. In addition, if management solely relies on MBO for all management responsibilities, it can be problematic for areas that don't fit under MBOs. The next module we shall be discussing is on managerial behaviors and attitudes towards people. Managerial effectiveness is strongly affected by attitudes and behaviors of managers and, of course, their workers. How we behave at work often depends on how we feel about being there. Therefore, making sense of how people behave depends on understanding their work attitudes. Now we'll look at 3 concepts. These concepts are values, attitudes, and behavior. An attitude refers to our opinion, belief, and feelings about aspects of our environment. Our values are the foundation of everything we do. They drive our choices and our decisions and help us explain our feelings and emotions. Having an understanding of values and their impact will give you an essential tool for getting the best from yourself and those you work with. And lastly, behavior. What is behavior? It is the way in which we act or conduct ourselves, especially towards others. Now, there's this relationship between values, attitudes, and behavior. What is this relationship? Values are attitudes about the what or importance of people, concepts, or things. Values influence your behavior because you use them to decide between alternatives. Values, attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs are cornerstone of who we are and how we do things. How would you define values? As we earlier discussed, your values are the things that you believe are important in the way you live and work. They determine your priorities, and deep down, they are probably the measures you use to tell if life is turning out the way you want it or not. When the things that you do and the way you behave match your values, life is usually good. you are satisfied and content. But when these don't align with your personal values, that's when things feel wrong. This can be a real source of unhappiness. This is why making a conscious effort to identify your values is so important. How values help you? Values exist, whether you recognize them or not. Life can be much easier when you acknowledge your values and when you make plans and decisions that honor them. If you value family, but you have to work 70 hours in a week on your job, you will feel internal stress and conflict. And if you don't value competition and you work in a highly competitive sales environment, are you likely to be satisfied with your job? In this type of situations, understanding your values can really help. When you know your own values, you can use them to make decisions about how to live your life, and you can answer questions that will affect your lifestyle. Now, what is attitude? An attitude is a positive, negative, or mixed evaluation of an object expressed at some level of intensity. It is an expression of a favorable or unfavorable evaluation of a person, place, thing, or event. These are fundamental determinants of our perceptions of and actions towards all aspects of our social environment. Attitude involves a complex organization of evaluative beliefs, feelings, and tendencies towards certain actions. How much we like or dislike a thing or something that determines our behavior towards that thing. We tend to approach, seek out, or be associated with things we like. We avoid, shun, or reject things we do not like. Characteristics of attitudes. Attitudes are complex combinations of things we call personality, beliefs, values, behaviors, and motivation. It can fall anywhere along a continuum from very favorable to very unfavorable. All people, irrespective of their status or intelligence, hold attitudes. An attitude exists in every person's mind. It helps to define our identity, guide our actions, and influence how we judge people. Although the feeling and belief components of attitudes are internal to a person, we can view a person's attitude from their resulting behavior. Attitude helps us define how we see situation and define how we behave towards the situation or object. It provides us with internal cognition or belief and thoughts about people and objects. It can also be explicit and implicit. Explicit attitude is those that we are consciously aware of. An implicit attitude is unconscious but still affects our behavior. Attitude causes us to behave in a particular way towards an object or a person. An attitude is a summary of a person's existence, experience. Thus, an attitude is grounded in direct experience, predicts future behavior more accurately. It includes certain aspects of personality as interests, appreciation, and social conduct. It indicates the total of a man's inclination and feelings. An attitude is a point of view, substantiated or otherwise, true or false, which one holds towards an idea, object, or person. It has aspects such as direction, intensity, quality, or specificity. It refers to what for doing well. It may be positive or negative and may be affected by age, position, and education. As a manager, we expect your employees to show increased participation and dedication so that the company can succeed. Most employees are willing, but they need guidance and goals understand your own vision for the expectations of how they do their job. Now, the way you conduct yourself as a manager impacts you, your employee, and the company as a whole. As such, the way you conduct yourself is referred to as behavior. Behavior can therefore be defined as the way in which you act or conduct yourself, especially towards others. Now we shall be looking at factors that influence our values, attitudes, and behaviors as managers. We have quite a number of factors, but we shall be looking at a few in this lecture series. First is parental upbringing. They say what? Charity begins at home. Our parents have great influence on our values, our attitudes, and our behaviors as humans. Again, we look at past work and other life experiences. These have a way of affecting the way we also behave. The nature of our friends and family. I'm sure you remember this saying, show me your friends, I will tell you who you are. Our peers, our friends have a way of affecting us. Our health status, another factor that can also affect our behaviors and values, is our personality. Also, your level of education and intelligence affects how you behave and your attitudes. Again, we have past failures and successes. These also form key parts of our what? Experiences. Other factors that affect or influence our values, our attitudes and behaviors are our financial status or that of our parents. If you're rich, you have a way of thinking, you have a way of behaving. And if you have a very poor background, you also have a way of thinking, you also have a way of behaving. Then we have the nature of other co-workers. They have a way of affecting us. Now, behavior of superiors and colleagues, organizational culture, rules. And then we also look at religious inclination. You know, if there's a way you think, if you're a Christian, there's also a way you think. If you're also a traditionalist, there's also this way that you are forced to think, all based on the fact of your religious inclination. Next, we shall be looking at some negative managerial behaviors. It is often said that people do not leave bad jobs, but they leave bad bosses. There are several different characteristics that make working for someone a bad experience. Some might just be behaviors that make the environment toxic, and others might be lack of management in the workplace. From a lack of recognition for hard work to a lack of expectation, there are varieties of ways that a boss can be bad. Now, as we can see on the slide displayed, some negative managerial behaviors are defective management style. Some managers are just not there. They are known as absentee managers. They are never there to guide, to direct their employees. Then we have pride. A proud manager is bound to fail. Lose morale. Here we talk about ethics. You need to be ethical in your conduct. Now, loose morale can lead to sexual harassment in the place of work, can lead to fighting and bullying. All these are negative behaviors, and they have a way of affecting organizational performance. We have thievery. So managers are thieves. Managers use their pen to steal. Such a behavior, it's very, very toxic to the environment. Then we have conflict of interest. We have wickedness. We have nepotism, bad mouthing, absenteeism, laziness, authoritarianism. Others setting employee up to fail, picking favorites amongst the office, making false promises, ignoring feedback or question, not standing up for reports, employees under us, acting incompetent. Some managers are just incompetent, they are not cut out for the job. not stepping in to offer assistance when help is needed. And many a time, this could also result from a lack of competence. Now, another negative behavior is trying to make friends with employee. It's not bad to make friends, but whenever you make friends with employee to collect things from them or for them to bribe you, all of these have a way of impacting negatively on the organization. Abusing in any way, including gossiping, yelling, swearing, name calling, belittling, using aggressive body language, and other rude behaviors that could lead to a toxic work environment. Not looking to improve their own management style by managers is also a very, very negative behavior on their part. Effect of poor work behavior by managers. Poor management can cause lasting damage to employees and the organization. If it's not recognized, it can lead to toxic and uninviting working atmosphere. This reputation is hard to shake. However, it's the step you take to improve your company's health, well-being, and overall productivity, which will help to reduce the negative effects of poor management. Now, one of the first trends you will observe as a result of poor managerial behavior is high staff turnover. Your employees won't be leaving the job. They will be leaving because of their bad managers. Having high staff turnover is not only costly, but is also damaging towards the business reputation. Again, is an increased sick leave. This could be a sign of poor employee mental and physical health and well-being. Working for a bad manager can cause increased stress and anxiety levels. Many employees could also suffer from sleep deprivation, which will decrease their productivity. If your employees' health is suffering, it's your duty to safeguard them. Getting to the root of the problem and taking it head on will help improve company reputation and morale and will reduce sick leave. As we've touched upon earlier, poor management can lead to a damaged company reputation. Reputation is hard one to build, yet easy to ruin. This can result in the reduction in potential new clients. Poor management can affect the company's budget, employees' turnover, and overall profits. Finally, there is a decrease in productivity and morale. Employees may be struggling with the leadership being given. If employees have an effective leader, their task performance will continue to soar. Heading your staff's drive will empower the team, leading to job satisfaction and increased commitment and positive mental attitude. Having a toxic work environment will eventually engulf the whole office. A manager's behavior will have a direct knock on effects on what is seen to be accepted and unaccepted within the business. We'll conclude this module by looking at how we can be happier at work. For us to be happy at work, the first thing we need to do is to have a positive attitude. Your personality is a big part of your happiness. If you are always looking for the negative side of everything, you will find it. 2, you need to be a good fit for the job. A good fit for the job and company is important to your happiness. This starts with knowing yourself. What do you want from the job? What do you enjoy doing? Be honest with yourself and do a honest self-assessment. Another thing that will make you happier in the job is to get accurate information about the job and the company before you take the offer. Ask detailed questions about what life is like in this company. Do your research. Read about the company, and use your social network to understand the company's culture. Another thing we need to do to be happier at work is to develop good relationship at work. Make friends. Try to get a mentor. Approach a person you admire and attempt to build a relationship with this person. An experienced mentor can be a great help in navigating life at a company. Your social network can help you weather the bad days, provide you an instrumental support during your time in the company as well as afterwards. Pay is very key. It's very, very important when it comes to the job. But job characteristics matter more to your job satisfaction. Don't sacrifice the job itself for a little bit of more money. When choosing a job, look at the level of challenge and the potential of the job to make you engaged. Another thing you need to do at work to make you happier is that you need to be proactive in managing organizational life. If the job is stressful, cope with it by effective time management and having a good social network, as well as being proactive in getting to the source of the stress. If you don't have enough direction, ask for it. Know when to leave. If the job makes you unhappy over an extended period of time and there is little hope of solving the problem, it may be time to look elsewhere. Couple we, couple why. We have come to the end of part 1 of our lecture series on management principles and practice. Let's recap what we have learned so far. First, we looked at the various schools of thought on the definition of management. Can you define management in your own words? We also discussed who managers are, their functions, role, and expectations. Can you remember them? Again, we discussed management theories. We looked at the scientific management theory, the human relation theory, and the systems theory, their benefits and application in modern day workplace, as well as their disadvantages. Can you recall them? Our third module for discussion was centered on management models, the definition of a model, and the different types of models. What are they? They are the participatory model, the management grid model, and management by objectives. Can you recall their merits and demerits in the modern day workplace? Lastly, we discussed the behaviors and attitudes of managers with emphasis on values and behavior. I want to believe you have really gained a lot from this series of our lecture on management principles and practice. If you're yet to register and pay for the NIM NYC Proficiency in Management exam, I want to kindly implore you to do so by visiting www.nimportal.ng. I repeat again, visit www.nimportal.ng. Becoming a member of NIM will help you acquire skills as well as help you understand the modern day workplace. This will help prepare you for the real world of life, the real world of work as soon as you finish your service. Once again, I want to wish you the very best in your service. Keep improving on yourself and ensure you keep safe. I am Kemi Parker. You can reach me on 0805 2597 217. I repeat again, you can reach me on 0805 2597 217 should you have questions. Goodbye and God bless you.